Father Adrian, we are on live.
Are we online?
Yeah.
Yes.
We are good to go?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Right, thank you. Brethren and invited guests, welcome to the Human Fraternity Week in Tangaza University College in Nairobi, Kenya, East Africa. Allow me to give you the background and the content of this week of human fraternity here in Tangaza University College, handled by IRDIS, Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, based at Tangaza University College. Following the landmark declaration of human fraternity by the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Sheikh Ahmed At-Tayyib, and Pope Francis in 2019, a lot of activities have spanned the globe to explore and enhance our common existence. It has been followed up by a very impactful encyclical of Fratelli, Tutti by Pope Francis in 2020, addressing the world with a call to joint action and solidarity. The Institute for Interreligious Dialogue and Islamic Studies, IRDIS, based at Tangaza University College in Nairobi, Kenya, is hence organizing a full week of activities to celebrate and promote different aspects of this idea. It will include a series of webinars by scholars from Kenya and Europe, reflecting on the idea of universal fraternity. Book launch also is part of the program, and concrete activities promoting better understanding amongst all. This is therefore the program laid out for this week to reflect together on the great idea of human fraternity. This is our first webinar. An exhibition is already on way here in Tangaza, bringing together world religions to reach out to each other for universal peace and global ethics. And this webinar, which begins with the web series of webinars, a 4-webinar series. This first one is entitled Introduction to Fratelli Tutti and its relevance for the dialogue between believers and actually between peoples of goodwill. Welcome to this webinar, and the speaker will be Father Raphael Deon. Father Raphael Deon, few words on Father Raphael Deon, is a member of the Society of the Missionaries of Africa, commonly known as White Fathers, that has its foundation in North Africa on Muslim land. And Father Raphael Deon spent more than 20 years in Algeria on Muslim soil at the service of small Christian communities and of Muslims. He taught their English and reached out to them. Author of a wonderful book entitled Oui, il est possible de vivre ensemble au quotidien, he invites us to meditate on the beauty and possibility of living together. He lived in Marseille and worked for at least 5 years at the service of Muslim-Christian relations. I'll leave it here. He's now working in Belgium, and he will surely give us more information. But before that, I think Christophe comes in with something.
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Father Adrian. Just before Raphael.
Christophe to bring back.
Yes, thank you very much, Father Adrian. Before Raphael's speech, on behalf of the Catholic Institute of Mediterranean Sea in Marseille, I would like to express our gratitude to Tangaza University College for their invitation to participate to the Human Fraternity Week organized by the IRDIS in Nairobi. Our institute was created in 1992 after a diocesan synodus by Father Jean-Marc Aveline, who is now the Archbishop of Marseille and President of the Council for Interreligious Relations at the French Bishop Conference. The art of the Institute is, like IRDIS for you, is Institute for Science and Theology of Religions, and especially with Judaism and Islam, because of our position on the north side of Mediterranean Sea. We have relationships with other people and academic institutions around Mediterranean Sea, especially in Lebanon, Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, and with the Pisa in Rome. We would like to develop academic and human links with other institutions involved in the dialogue between faiths, religions, and believers. So we very much appreciate this first collaboration with you in Nairobi at the IRDIS by the means of Dr. Rémi Kokanas, working with you for 3 years, and he was the former director of our institute in Marseille. Yeah. For us, this participation to this week is the first step in a collaboration which begins between the IRDIS in Nairobi, Pisa in Rome, and ICM in Marseille. Thanks to you, and now we listen Father Raphael de Jong.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father Christophe and Father Adrian, and thank you to the others who are going to listen to this, this first conference. So I will try to put beside okay, I'll try to put the
PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Partagez l'écran, Raphaël.
Sorry.
Partagez l'écran.
Oui. Wait a minute.
En bas à droite. Et flèche noire sur fond vert.
Oui.
Partagez l'écran.
But it's written that l'animateur a désactivé le partage.
Ah oui. Alors, Father Adrian, il faut que quelqu'un autorise Raphaël à partager l'écran.
All right. Milka.
Il faut que vous demandiez à vos conseillers techniques d'autoriser Raphaël à partager l'écran.
C'est ça.
Dès que c'est fait, il pourra partager l'écran, Raphaël.
OK.
C'est bon? C'est à côté de partager l'écran. Voilà. Ah oui, ils ont disparu là.
Milka. Yes. Can you tell them to allow Raphaël to share his screen? All right. Ils vont essayer de régler ça.
Merci,
okay.
Father.
Thank you.
Adrian. Alors, regarde Raphaël, partager l'écran, regarde si ça fonctionne actuellement.
Pas encore.
Pas encore. Ah, c'est les joies du direct, tout ça, hein, tu sais. Là, pour passer à la télévision comme ça, il faut être bien réglé. Partager l'écran, toujours pas?
Il n'a pas encore désactivé.
Ah là.
Not yet.
Peut-être que Raphaël peut commencer quand même, non? Je sais pas.
C'est difficile quand tu as commencé. Je te comprends, Christophe, mais c'est difficile.
Non, oui, il faut qu'on attende qu'il lui permette de...
Toujours pas partagé, Christophe? Raphaël?
Non.
Raphaël de Jong, tu y es. C'est bon, Raphaël. C'est marqué sur mon écran.
OK.
Alors, tu fais Raphaël, partager.
Oui.
Et tu dois voir arriver ton PowerPoint.
Il y est.
Voilà, et tu cliques dessus comme hier. C'est parfait, Raphaël.
Okay.
Magnifique, ça y est.
So, let's begin. You certainly have all read the magnificent encyclical of Pope Francis, most appropriately entitled for the times, for the times we live in, Fratelli, Tutti. Yes, we are brothers and sisters of the same God, but one must be able to live this fraternity as a real family. Pope Francis encourages us to continue to dialogue at all costs. Let's reread the best pieces of advice to guide our steps towards our search for unity in diversity. Encouraged by his recent meeting with the Grand Imam Ahmed al-Tayyib, the Pope let himself inspired by St. Francis of Assisi, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Desmond Tutu, and Blessed Charles de Foucauld, who named himself the Universal Brother. Fratelli Tutti, so wrote St. Francis of Assisi when addressing all his brothers and sisters to offer them a way of life modeled on the gospel. An encyclical inspired by the courageous attitude of St. Francis of Assisi. Aware of the dangers, St. Francis went to meet the Sultan, adopting the attitude taught to his disciples not to engage in arguments or disputes, but to be subject to every human creature for God's sake. And here is how 800 years later, Francis invites us to avoid any aggression and have a fraternal submission towards those who do not share our faith. Pope Francis drew inspiration both from the experience of St. Francis of Assisi and from his recent meeting with Sultan Al-Kamil Mohammed Al-Malik in Abu Dhabi.
Raphaël, tu penses bien à changer tes slides, hein?
Yes. Sorry, I'm wrong. In webinar 3, Father Christophe will develop Fratelli Tutti in the context of this meeting in Abu Dhabi from the perspective of a Muslim. From the encyclical, we will draw the most striking features to which Pope Francis draws the attention to all those anxious to become brothers and sisters with all, whatever our own faith. I will sprinkle the Pope's instructions with the experiences I have had field work when meeting Muslims who quickly became friends of mine. I will make this conference more alive. It will make this conference more alive and encourage the more daring of you to take an interest in the practical part of the Islamic Christian encounter. So the first feature, a dialogue can only begin with two people, otherwise it is a monologue. Although I quote the Pope Francis, although I have written it from the Christian convictions, I have sought to make this reflection an invitation to dialogue among all people of goodwill. Dreams are built together. Let us dream as children of the same common home, each of us bringing the richness of our beliefs and convictions. And to support this first notion of respect, I would like to share with you the wonderful initiative born in Marseille of a group of priests and imams 10 years ago, and which still lasts today. If sometimes only takes the it sometimes only takes the initiative of one or two people to spark a wonderful idea. For the White Fathers, the missionaries of Africa present in Tangaza, you certainly heard of Father Etienne Renaud, who once was Superior General of the Society of the Missionaries of Africa and the first to penetrate in Yemen together with the White Sisters. So it was he who, with the help of a Xaverian sister, Sir Colette Hamza, daughter of a Muslim Kabylian father, toured the priests and imams of Marseille to find who would be ready to dare a group of imams and priests. It began to be an amicable exchange on subjects that interested us all, such as our founding texts, religious freedom, and also very touchy subjects such as one God and God Trinity. The monthly meetings take place once in a presbytery, once in a mosque. We were longing to move from talking around a table and go out to prove that priests and imams are capable of cooperating together, not only in words, but in deeds. Priests visited mosques and imams toured churches with comments and questions. And at the end, we had all together a shared meal. Since the pandemic, we went a little further. We have organized every Saturday morning in the hall of the famous St. Charles railway station in Marseille, a breakfast for migrants, irregular residents, homeless, and the like. 5 or 6 imams, 5 or 6 priests, a few sisters and volunteers, a long table with coffee and sandwiches, and a lot of friendship. Sorry. That is what altogether is Fratelli Tutti means. To highlight the great work which everyone can do, let us recall the words of the Pope. And so he says, unscrupulous traffickers exploit the weakness of migrants who experience violence, trafficking, psychological and physical abuse, and untold sufferings on their journey. They experience also separation from their place of origin and often a cultural and religious uprooting from their families. Then, too, migration causes fear, which can lead to a xenophobic mentality. And the greatest scandal denounced by the Pope is the involvement of Christians in such an attitude. And I read from the encyclical, for Christians, this way of thinking and acting is unacceptable. Europe, for example, seriously risks losing its great cultural and religious heritage, which helped her protect the rights of each human being and assure assistance to migrants.
Raphaël, les transparents.
It will come. We should also recognize the fanaticism is at times found among religious believers, including Christians caught up in networks of verbal violence through the various forms of digital communication. Excuse me. It's the COVID. The second feature to point out from the encyclical is the danger spread by the deceptive communications. Our relations, if they are authentic, open us to others who enrich us. Nowadays, our social instinct can easily be thwarted by self-centered chats that give the impression of being deep relationships, but authentic love and true friendship can only take root in hearts through real relationships. Virtual relationships do not reach a durable friendship. They even may favor aggressiveness and insults, which ruin any form of dialogue. You will allow me to introduce here the beneficial action of dignity that we Christians may plant in the heart of those who are discredited, left misunderstood because of their origin or because of their beliefs. I'd like to share the experience we have had for several years in Catholic colleges attended by more than 3/4 of Muslims pupils. The Bishop of Marseille, conscious of the melting pot of some districts of the city, asked me and a sister to give talks on religious matters within these colleges. You may know that in France, it is not allowed to give religion classes in schools. But talking about God, when you know how to master the subject, there is always a way. You may speak of creation, fraternity, solidarity, and so on, and then reach the author himself, God. If the subject is delicately introduced by an audiovisual warming up or recent events, the minds of the young people heat up very quickly. They are immediately prompted to speak out according to their beliefs and with the frankness still present at their age. Among the topics we touched on, one rocked the entire college. It is the phenomenon of harassment. It is surprising how many young pupils are harassed in colleges by youngsters who form groups to dominate and destroy others who are weak. Excuse me. There is no, and I'm quoting Pope Francis, there is no worse alienation than feeling having no roots and belonging to no one. Seeking to destroy the esteem of the other is a way of dominating him. Our work in these colleges, believe it or not, our work in these colleges has changed their attitude. Father Christophe Roucou, who continues this apostolate, told me of his joy at seeing the atmosphere among pupils of different origins and religions evolving towards more tolerance and understanding. In that way, without speaking directly of God, we help the youngsters find themselves brothers and sisters of the same Father. I still stress the importance of this contact with young pupils because it is in schools that the most insidious recruitments of fundamentalism followers are made. Young fanatics, prompted by aggressive Islamists, try by all means to recruit youngsters who feel in search of a meaning in their life. This is how, with a sister, we brought together a group of deeply Christian parents, whose children fled to jihad, indoctrinated by schoolmates of theirs. We meet with this group of Christian parents once a month so that these distraught parents can share their sorrows and their hopes. I make it an appeal to all of you who dream of bringing the good news to young people. The third feature is the attention we have to people. Even before looking for effectiveness in our apostolate, we must love as Jesus loved. There is a beautiful reflection of Pope Francis, for whom the apostolate is not marketing, but meeting people. I'm sorry. I quote, "We must break down walls," says the Pope Francis, "to fill up our hearts with faces and names." In a few years, the question will not be how many people have had a positive image of me, but how much love have I put in my work? How did I help others to go forward? I would like, and end of quotation, excuse me. I would like to illustrate this prospect with a personal anecdote which says that the bonds we build can bear fruit far more abundantly than one might have expected. I spent 25 years of mission in Algeria with, as friends, a lot of Muslims and a few Christians. I was a teacher in a secondary school in the Algerian Sahara. The population was nomadic shepherds who raised sheep. During some school holidays, I went to the mountains for my 8 days retreat. I tried to remain discreet to ensure the silence of my retreat, but in the barren mountains, you quickly come across some nomadic tents. And soon a young man approached me and hugged me once, twice, 6 times, as it is the custom in the place. "Don't you recognize me?" he said. At second sight, I recognized Raisi, one of my former students long ago. "I am now a teacher in this small village," he said, "and it's thanks to you. Come and have coffee at my friend's house next door." During the coffee offered by our host, the classic question is put, "And you, are you married?" Straight away, my friend Raisi took me by speed. "No, he's not married, but he still has time. He's only 35. Which ended the discussion on this touchy subject, still in every Muslim's mind. Marriage is compulsory, as the Quran says. Our host wanted to prepare couscous for us. "No," said my friend Raisi, "Mr. Raphael has a meeting at noon." Off again on our way, I received an answer to these 2 beautiful lies from my friend. "You see," he said, "you see how I got you out of embarrassment. He asked you if you were married. You were not going to explain that you were a white father, that white fathers don't get married, and so on and so on. He would have not understood anything. I cut short with a little lie. That's better, don't you think? And then I wasn't going, he said, I wasn't going to say that you were on a prayer retreat. He wouldn't have understood anything either. I said, you had a meeting and that's not entirely wrong, since it is with God. So you can continue your retreat peacefully, and please pray for me and for my family. Yes, our apostolate is not about achieving great success, as Pope Francis says, and I quote, "Be sure," he says, "that none of your acts of sincere concern for others, no single act of love for God will be lost. No generous effort is meaningless. No painful endurance wasted. We must fill up our hearts with faces and names." End of quotation. And this day, his name was Raisi, and he had understood everything on dialogue. The fourth feature to be underlined is Fratelli in Fratelli Tutti, is when it points out is the snowball effect that can make the first step you take towards the other. The Pope is very clear in that point. I quote, "In a true spirit of dialogue, we grow in grasping the significance of what others say and do, even if we cannot accept it as our own conviction. In this way, it becomes possible to be frank and open about our beliefs while continuing to discuss, to seek points of contact, and above all, to work and struggle together." End of quotation. No one can have the entire truth. Whoever wants to be faithful to his principles must accept that the other too has the right to be faithful to his own. We must get used to practicing to unmask the manipulation of the truth. What we call truth is not just the broadcasting of facts through the press and media. I cannot help reporting here the reflection of an imam from our imam priests meeting. The subject this day with the group of imam and priests was going around the caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad on the front page of the French satirical weekly called Charlie Hebdo, in no way respectful of anyone. In the middle of our debate, the Imam Azzeddin stood up straight to express his disapproval. And he said, "For my part, it is not the drawing of the Prophet Muhammad on the cover page with a turban handling with the wick of a bombshell that scandalized me. What made me terribly sick are the insanities that were written about Sister Emmanuel on the second page. As a Muslim, I do not accept that one can dirty a sister who gave her life for the poorest of Cairo's slums. Before being a Muslim or a Christian, I am a man with full respect for men and women." Imam Azzeddin sat down, accompanied by a deep silence that spoke a lot about the value of sincerity in dialogue. And I quote Pope Francis, "Dialogue involves speaking words of comfort, strength, consolation, and encouragement, and not words that demean, sadden, anger, or show scorn. The fourth feature points, yes. The fifth feature, which drew my attention in Fratelli Tutti, well, I was wrong in my, I continue. I am still in the fourth feature. The fourth feature is the snowball, the effect that can make the first step you take towards the other. This is clear to me in the words of the Pope, inviting us to the simplicity of openness to others. Nowadays, we find neither the time nor the energy to stop and be kind to others, to say, excuse me, pardon me, thank you. But, he says, miraculously, when a kind person appears and is willing to set everything else aside in order to show interest, to give a smile, speak a word of encouragement, listen amid general indifference, it can create a healthy social atmosphere in which misunderstandings can be overcome and conflict forestalled. My friend Musa arrived late one day for a meeting. Sorry, am I wrong? Shall I continue?
Go ahead.
Il y a des micros ouverts, Father Adrian, qui perturbent.
So
Rafael, continue.
I go on. My friend Musa, this is an example of the dialogue on the ground. My friend Musa arrived late one day for a meeting. You know, I spent the Eid festival on duty as manned line at the switchboard of the town hall. It should have been my colleague's turn, but she asked me if I could replace her. Straight away, I remembered that a few years ago, he said, that's Musa, you came back earlier from your holidays in Europe to welcome a group of young people here. And I asked you at that time, don't you mind shortening your vacation like that? And you answered, if that can help someone. Your answer came back to me when she asked me to replace her. So I told her, if that can help you. Sorry, I'm a bit wrong with the PowerPoint, but never mind. Sorry. Sorry, I'm a bit wrong. I should go there. Yes. The fifth feature from the lesson of Pope Francis is the notion of forgiveness. If forgiveness and reconciliation are strongly emphasized in Christianity, they are also in Islam. Our risk is to give no credence to the beliefs or other believers and presenting them in the light of intolerance and violence. To forgive is not giving up our rights in front of a powerful, corrupt person who degrades all dignity. On the contrary, to love is to do everything to remove the power from whoever disfigures the human. And I quote Pope Francis, "The offense and the rancor never forgiven that I hold in my heart against my brother or my sister are a little flame deep in my heart that need to be extinguished." End of quotation. I have always been impressed by the strong desire of Muslim friends at death's door to seek for reconciliation at all costs before they die. I have seen bedridden people being transported to their relatives to ask for their forgiveness and stoop before those they have offended, and this just before they die. Remotivate the world with our religious texts, and I quote Pope Francis, "Among the most important causes of the crisis of the modern world is that our human conscience has become anesthetized. The world has largely distanced itself from religious values to let individualism and materialism introduce material values in place of transcendental principles. Religious texts can prove meaningful in every age, stimulate thoughts, mind, and heart. Yet they are often depreciated by the narrow-minded rationalists. But in imitation of Mary, the mother of Jesus, we want to be a church that leaves home and goes forth from its place of worship and its sacristies in order to accompany life, sustain hope, and be a sign of unity, build bridges, break down walls, sow seeds of reconciliation." End of quotation. And I go with my conclusion. As a conclusion, I will take 3 virtues for a positive dialogue, and that will be our conclusion. I do not think I am too far from your personal experiences by presenting these points. The first is, how far does my patience go? The second, how far does my welcoming spirit go? And the third, how far does my humility go? I begin with the first. How far does my patience go? And I quote Ecclesiastes Coelet. "There is a season for everything, a time for giving birth and a time for dying, a time for planting and a time for uprooting what has been planted." End of quotation. Am I patient enough in my contacts? To know people and love them, to make ourselves known and appreciated, we have to last in the place where we have been appointed. Am I patient enough to learn who they are, to accept their mentality and their way of living? I had been 10 years in Algeria when I was appointed in Yemen, an Arab and Muslim country. But I was missing Algeria and the Algerians. One day, visiting the Swiss consul, I was complaining about the difficult character of the Yemenis. I will never forget the consul's reply. He said, "Father, you must love them." The second is, how far does my welcoming spirit go? And who am I? Who am I ready to welcome or not? Here is a small parabola from Gerard Hughes, a Scottish Jesuit, on welcoming people. I'm sorry. Imagine that one evening, I'm quoting, imagine that one evening someone knocks at your door, you go to answer it, and who do you find there but Jesus on your doorstep? You can't believe your eyes. You don't believe what to say. And you say, "Come in and make yourself at home." So he does. You introduce him to all the community who are as delighted as you are. After a week, though, you begin to realize that Jesus is taking your "make yourself at home" literally. He invites in all sorts of people, tramps, cripples, people with other religion, just like he did in the gospel. You see that the members of your community are getting irritated. They leave the table, slam the doors, and around you, people will tell you, you are far too innocent. These people are taking advantage of you. Let them make do with their habits, their halal, and their salam alek. What to do? Are you going to send Jesus away and deny him? I have always kept these words of Sister Odette of the Sacred Heart of Foucault, writing to her family at the height of the massacres in Algeria before dying. Between prudence and the gospel, I choose the gospel. End of the quotation of this sister who has been assassinated in Algeria. And the third point, the third virtues of dialogue is, how far does my humility go? Am I humble enough to accept that I can learn from others' culture, tradition, or religion, just as I can teach them of my own? And I quote Philippians, "Though he was in the form of God, he humbled himself to the point of death, even to death on the cross." Christian Déchargé, the prior of a monk's community killed in Algeria, wrote a beautiful sentence in his will. I quote, "If I happened to be a victim of terrorism, I would like my community, my church, my family to remember that my life was," and this is written in big letters, "my life was given to everyone and to this country. I would also like to know what is the divine mystery that separates us." And he adds, "This mystery belongs only to God. Let us accept the words from Christ when washing Peter's feet. Christ said, 'You will understand that later.'" If we cannot yet understand it, it is not forbidden to hope. A friend of mine compared it to the definition of a pious Muslim mathematics teacher who had this definition of parallels. And he said, "The parallels are two straight lines that never meet except God willing. This is how the Pope, using Nostra Aetate, ends his encyclical. The Church rejects nothing of what is true and holy in these religions. She has a high regard for their manner of life and conduct, their precepts and doctrines, which often reflect a ray of that truth which enlightens all men and women. End of quotation. And we shall finish this in music. And I quote Pope Francis, "If the music of the gospel ceases to resonate in our very, sorry, if the music of the gospel ceases to resonate in our very being, we will lose the joy born of the compassion, the tender love of trust, the capacity for reconciliation. If the music of the gospel ceases to sound in our homes, our public squares, our workplaces, then we will no longer hear the strains that challenge us to defend the dignity of every man and woman. Others drink from other sources. For us Christians, the wellspring of human dignity and fraternity is in the gospel of Jesus Christ. We believers need to find occasion to speak with one another and act together for the common good. This has nothing to do with concealing our deepest conviction when we encounter others who think differently, for the deeper, stronger, and richer our own identity is, the more we will be capable of enriching others with our own proper contribution. And the chorus of this music stands with Mary. For many Christians, I quote, for many Christians, this path of fraternity also has a mother called Mary. She received at the foot of the cross this universal motherhood, full of solicitude for Jesus and the rest of her children. Strong in the power of the risen one, she wants to give birth to a new world with room for the excluded. And I quote Pope Francis, religious leaders are to be true people of dialogue, to build peace and mediators who retains nothing for themselves, but rather spend themselves generously, knowing that the only gain is peace by uniting and not dividing, by extinguishing hatred and not holding on to it, by opening paths of dialogue and not by constructing new walls. The Pope will end by resuming the call for peace, justice, and fraternity signed in Abu Dhabi last year with Grand Imam Ahmed al-Tayyib. This event will be developed in the conferences of the coming days, as well as the experience of God and his journey of conversion of Blessed Charles de Foucauld, the universal brother. Father Christophe will develop us magnificently on the path of this universal brother in the last conference of this forum. May God inspire this dream in each of us. Thank you. I hope you have understood everything, and I was not too long.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raphael. An applause to you.
Thank you. I was in a mess at the time because I didn't put the right number on the pages.
Okay, don't worry. You are right on time. We still even have 15 minutes left.
Oh.
Imagine, you've done well. Great.
Was
Yeah.
I too quick?
No, that was fine, Raphael. That was fine.
Okay.
Great, great. Thank you very much, Raphael.
Thank you. And we are waiting for the other conferences when time comes.
When time comes, and time is coming right. Thank you for taking us through this wonderful document that we are all brothers and sisters in the same God, and that we must be able to bring that to life, live
Thank
it,
you.
and a way of life that is molded by the gospel, not to engage in arguments or dispute, but to humble self and reach out to each other in our differences. Those 5 features you brought forth are very enriching for the debate that we will have following the other webinars. Dialogue begins with two, and even though the foundation of his argumentation is Christian, that letter is encyclical is an invitation to all people of goodwill. From talking around the table, let's reach out to each other to have a share of each other's life. And thus, you would like to highlight the great work that this need to take for everyone, and each one can do that. And that's one very good point. The second feature is very important. Watch out for the deceptive communication, which is very true. And self-centeredness versus authentic love is through relationships. That is very true. While the virtual relationship may even sometimes ruin the relations. A great experience of the pupils that are working together and to come together, to work together, the meaning of each one's life, meaning of one's life. It's a very encouraging example you gave us that something is already being done in that line to reach out to each other. And then, therefore, the need of that attention in your third feature, attention towards people. Love as Jesus loved could be the summary of that feature. Love as Jesus loved. Not to mind or take the perception of relationship as marketing. Don't be great success focused, but rather reach out to people, to meet people. And then knowing that that is not meaningless, our effort, that effort is not meaningless. Yeah, it fills our hearts with faces and names. That's beautiful. Yeah,
Faces and names, yes.
our hearts with faces and names. And your fourth feature is great. First step towards the other. Most often, that's the most difficult one in the great experience that you have and that our world is actually facing. How to make that first step toward the other. The great principle of true dialogue makes it possible to be friends. Maybe that is a very good, encouraging insight, not to be afraid, but to dare reach out to. And be, and that's beautiful the way you put it, be point of contact. Makes us realize the importance of that mission, that call that we have received now. Reach out to each other and accept that the other has the right to have and practice the truth as perceived and received. It's the great value of sincerity in dialogue, a simplicity to opening to the others. And then, of course, when the two reach out to each other, of course, sometimes misunderstandings, and we know it from historical background and contemporary experiences, that we need to keep at heart forgiveness and reconciliation, especially knowing that to forgive is not giving up one's right, it's rather building bridges and sowing seeds of love. And therefore, as a very good conclusion of the 3 virtues of therefore examining for that purpose, how far does my patience go? How far does my welcoming spirit go? And how far does my humility go? Very big three questions, three pillars for the pot to stand. And it's pretty beautiful, the first point there, the patience, you must love them. I like that sentence that summarizes it. You must love them. Very short, very straightforward. And how far does my welcoming spirit? I love that story. You are far too innocent. We hear that many times. And the answer is great. Will you send Jesus away then? It's a good question. It's a very good question. And humility, the mystery belongs only to God. I think that's a sharp point on that third virtue. This mystery belongs only to God, where high regard for each other becomes the way. Thank you very much for reminding us. And let therefore the music of the gospel resonate in our very being, for joy born of compassion, wellspring of human dignity. Thank you very much, Raphael. That was a very beautiful input, imbued of your missionary experience and your great simplicity, as I know you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if Christophe and Robert Boutigui, anyone has something to add to a question?
Actually, if I'm allowed to, I would have to ask two questions.
Okay, right. Ilaria has two questions. Go ahead, Ilaria.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Father De Jong. The first question, I'm a church historian, and this is not the first time that the Catholic Church is speaking about the importance of dialogue and fraternity. So the question would be, what is the most innovative character of this encyclica in comparison to other encyclical or the magisterium of the Catholic Church in this field? The second question regards really Africa. So how would you think what is the importance of this encyclica in the actual social and political situation in Africa? What is its message? It's East Africa, but also in Northern Africa, according to your experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, can I answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. For the first question, I am a bit dry because it's difficult for me to remember all the encyclical which have been given on that subject. But of course, Pope Francis is very much concerned by the situation which is going on all over the world, this fanatism. And I think that he took advantage of this bad situation to point out that dialogue is still possible and wherever we are. And this, if anybody can, maybe Father Christophe, who knows more than me on encyclicals, if he can say something about this, he will say it later. But I just continue on your second question about Africa. Of course, I have been living in North Africa for most of my life, and I've just visited southern, sub-Saharan Africa, when I was in visiting the communities. But of course, I understand your question because you probably live things that are very difficult at the moment. But you see, whatever the situation is, the gospel remains. And the gospel is love and love the other, whoever he is. And the second thing is forgiveness. You have to forgive to be capable of going on. Otherwise, you see, you go on you go on hating one another. And of course, the question of political, social and political situations doesn't help sometimes, but your faith must go over all these considerations. And this is what will make our world go on, otherwise we just go to hell altogether. Would my answer satisfy you, or should
Yes, yes. Thank you very much, Father. Thank you.
Thank
Father
you,
Christophe,
Ilaria.
thank you very much, Father Raphael. I see Christophe has something to say.
May I say something about the first question?
Yeah.
I think that what is new in the Magister speaking is that Francis make a link between dialogue and fraternity. And I think that in Fratelli Tutti, he said that the aim of the dialogue is not the dialogue in itself, but is a brotherhood, fraternity between human beings. And I will say this. And a second thing, I think that this Fratelli Tutti encyclic was written by the Pope because of his own experience of friendship. I don't know if I would say fraternity, with, for instance, Ahmed Tayyib. We are told that with Ahmed Tayyib, the Shir of El Azhar, it's not only a document signed like this, but there is a continuous dialogue between themselves. And Cardinal Torrent, who was in charge of Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, often said that what Pope Francis brings for in the dialogue, new thing he brings, it is a culture of friendship. And he said it's l'amitié, friendship is very important in the dialogue. Voilà what I would say. En complément de, but Raphael speaks a lot and speaks well.
Thank you very much, really.
Thank you very much, Father Christophe. We are to round up now. It's time up. I just wanted to thank you all, and to add before I say goodbye, add something to Ilaria's question, especially on the question of the meaning and importance of the encyclical for Africa, especially in the light of what is going on. We can mention, among other things, terrorism and wars again also. It really is, first, I believe, it's an encouragement to already existing endeavors and attitude toward bringing together people in their differences. I often say that in sub-Saharan Africa, especially from my experience of Southern and Western Africa, and now I'm in the East, is that already you have the experience of people who have learned to live in their differences in peace. In West Africa, this peace has been disrupted by what we have called nowadays named jihadism or terrorism, where you need to, this is another issue altogether to analyze. But this has disrupted already an existing effort and attitude to keep people in their differences living together as brothers and sisters on the same soil or in the same families. This is very frequent, not only in West Africa, but also in East and Southern Africa. Then it's also not only an encouragement to those who are doing already that, working at it, and the church is working really at that attitude, and it's also a call to wake up. A good number of communities had probably easily given in with goodwill. We've seen in Western Africa that people did not become violent because they had bad idea, bad will. many found themselves in out of conviction. Yeah. And that is why it's a call to wake up, examine your ways, think of what you are doing, how you think, why you think the way you think. So that this encyclical is really a contribution to this reflection. Wake up and think of your ways. And that's why I like these two features, these three virtues that Raphael Déon proposes at the end, at his conclusion. We need to watch out ourselves, especially for the church. Watch out how far goes your patience, your humility, and your spirit of welcome. Yeah, I think it's a good contribution. Thank you very much. I see that Raffaello has one word to say. One last.
Yes, I will add to what you said, the importance of for the Africans to have to be conscious, the Christian Africans to be conscious that they are those who will help the Western world to regain their own faith, because in the Western world we are mainly losing our Christian faith. We have to re-wake, as you said. And I think you are those who have this strong faith which can help us, so we can be brothers and sisters all together too.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Raphael Déon, for this commitment, and congratulations for the use of modern technology. Congratulations. You made it. Thank you very much to you all.
Technical question.
Christophe has something to say.
One technical question for tomorrow morning and the other morning. How do we connect?
Now that's a question that is very technical. I think we follow the same way